Good morning. This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined as always by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk over what I was going to say a difficult couple of weeks at United. That's what always is in my notes, but it's not. It's just been a very, very surreal time. So, obviously, as you know, we've not done any podcasts for a couple of weeks. The first thing I want to do, Paul, just check in, see how you're doing. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Just looking, I never thought I'd ever say this again, but looking for football to get going again. I'm used to stops at an end of a season. We did have a blip, quite a few months back, and all of a sudden I felt like we've had a kind of another mini blip, and let's hope we can get back going and everything get back on track again because now we're chasing games again, aren't we, to get them out of the way.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Whether it's a good or bad thing. I presume a bad thing because it's never a good thing to have a fixture pile up. But if you're watching live on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, please be sure to review and subscribe on the platform you're listening on. Feel free to get your questions and comments in as well if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're watching the replay, do feel free to comment. Well, we do still reply to those comments. So this is a channel about Manchester United. I know the monarchy is a divisive subject, and the passing of the Queen is an emotive subject for everyone. We're not really going to reference that in this podcast because it's time to get back to normal. We've definitely all been saturated with the content that we've seen over the last 10 or 11 days. The only thing that I do want to say is, because obviously we're going to talk about some things from a Manchester United perspective today, I do want to say that grief, for anyone who's watching or listening to this, grief is obviously a very different human experience because it's such a personal thing, and it's because of that, it's a very private thing. And obviously over the last 10 or 11 days, the public has been confronted with grief almost. It's been very, very public. Coming out of the back of a pandemic where almost everybody knows somebody who's passed away or experienced death otherwise in any period of time, to be confronted with grief being displayed in such a public way, and to have it in a way that we turn your television on, which is meant to be escape from life, and to have it there all the time must be very, very difficult for a lot of people. So I have put some links in the description to cruise.org.uk and mind.org.uk, online resources that might help if anyone is suffering because of that. Because obviously, with it being such a personal thing, with it being such a confrontational thing, I just thought it was an obligation to do that. And because of the subject matter, and because of we're talking about such an emotional time for a lot of people. And I was at the game on the Thursday night against Sociedad when the news broke, and we were wondering whether it was going to go ahead. I wanted to start off with an associated topic. Paul, there have been a few experiences at Old Trafford over the years where there's been a very strong, subdued feeling of grief. The first of which neither of us was alive for, the post-Munich game against Sheffield Wednesday, where obviously it was a very personal, intimate, strong and tangible grief that was on the stands because the Old Trafford crowd was obviously so connected to the Busby Babes and everything that happened there. And to come back as it did so soon after, obviously nothing would ever compare to that emotion. But you played in one, Everton 1994, which was possibly the next one, the next big emotional day at Old Trafford in this kind of sense. I mean, obviously there have been different emotional days, but that game against Everton in January '94 was a few days after Sir Matt Busby passed away. I just wanted to ask what your experiences were playing in a game like that, because and we can all remember it. We can all remember the haunting, the lone bagpiper leading the teams out, and the very, very surreal atmosphere that was so quiet and respectful for a while, and then it became like supercharged like for a while. Like the atmosphere was incredible, like electric in a certain way, not like buzzing but electric, for the sense that you're there for an occasion. I just want to know what it was like playing in a game like that.
Well, it was a bit strange coming out at Old Trafford and everything being quite somber. That was It's definitely a first for me to come out like that at Old Trafford anyway. Um, and then to play in a game like that was, I don't know, sometimes you do wonder, if we was talking about something maybe in today's world, what's becoming, you wonder whether or not that game would have gone on because there'd have been people maybe demanding that it shouldn't do. I
Yeah.
think again, thank God the right decision was made because everything that surrounded that was all about football, nothing else. Um, but the game itself was, as a Manchester United player, for us, it was a total annihilation given given to Everton. To be perfectly honest, Everton, they was just the only thing they didn't do. They didn't just fall on the floor because they was being boxed out of
Right.
the ring. We just constantly just attacking them. And after that game, one of my best mates in football is Ian Snowden. And I chatted to him after that game, directly after that game, and he used words just his own words, but he virtually just said we didn't need that. He goes, we couldn't win that. He goes, it was just there. We just couldn't win it. There wasn't enough there for us to really go at that occasion. Got to Everton players.
Yeah.
Seriously got to those players. They just didn't know what to do. And definitely Snowy wasn't saying that as if, oh, you got that because of this. He was just saying that the occasion got to them as well because they're footballers, but they're footballers who, when a situation like that, you do feel like it's one of your own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that fact of it being at Old Trafford as well is just said it all really. And they struggled, those Everton players, to get going. Emotionally for
Yeah.
them, it was a seriously tough game.
You played obviously at that point. We had such a strong lead in the league, and we were doing so well. We were playing so well. We're on this long unbeaten run. Is it almost like it's a different game? It's like it's not part of the league because it's an occasion like that.
Yeah, I mean, it did change it. It did change the dynamics a bit. You come out and everyone's on a high, and you expect to come out that tunnel, that massive roar, trying to scare the life out of Everton. And Everton, you know, they're still the other half of a city that are not keen on Manchester United.
No.
Um, and it's a big game for them. They'd already been there, I think, in 91, 92, and you know, smashed us then. Um,
Yeah.
so, so I just assumed that they come there that time expecting to get something out of the game. I think it was only 1-0 in the end, wasn't it, Wayne? Was that right?
Yeah. Gigs with
Wasn't
the
it? So,
header. Yeah.
yeah, it was, and it should have been more, but definitely it's one of those. I certainly will never forget that game. I mean, obviously, we've talked about a day, but someone talks to me about a game or anything of what we endured, and a somber day in football, that is always going to be that comes into my mind, that game, because of everything that would happen previous to to the game and what happened after as well.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. And we did play. It was funny because I think Fergie made a comment after that game, where he said, like, Busby would have been watching with a wry smile, saying, like United were a bit wasteful with the chances. It was quite funny that Fergie came out and said something like that after, because we did play really well, and like I think Cantona missed a couple of great chances as well.
He did.
I mean, they were good efforts. Don't get me wrong, but I think Fergie is sort of still using a little bit of that man management, even in an emotional sense, to sort of say, "Don't take your eye off the ball." Do you know what I mean? We still need to keep going. It was a. I mean, I think the highlights will definitely be on YouTube. So maybe I'll put a link in the comments for it. A very, very, very emotional day. Got a comment from Jay, says, "Hello guys, hope you're doing well. Morning, Jay. Hope you're all right." Yeah, so I guess that leads me into talking about the atmosphere before Sociedad. I was there, obviously you weren't, Paul. And I wasn't playing, I was a fan in the stands. It was very strange. Before, obviously, we went in like an hour before kickoff. We were on the forecourt when the news broke about the Queen passing away. And it was like, all right, is the game going to go ahead? And then the club sort of they sent everyone a text, let's say, oh, the game's going to still go ahead. there's going to be a minute silence and all that sort of stuff. And we were there, still sat on the forecourt when the flags were lowered and everything like that. It was very surreal to go in, and then you go into the game, and normally you've got Alan Keegan pumping up the crowd with he's got the pre-match announcements and stuff like that. But there was nothing. There was nothing on the hoardings. There was nothing on the the scoreboards or anything like that. No music before kickoff, and normally when United do that, they're doing it to they switch off the music like they did before Liverpool or big European games. They do it because it helps to build the atmosphere. But in that occasion, it was sort of like it was. I don't know. It was adding to the eeriness of it, rather than building an atmosphere. It was kind of like what it didn't really know what to do or what to feel. Everyone was just kind of there, and I guess what I'm going to ask you is about. Obviously, we lost against Sociedad, and I'm wondering, the manager made a few changes in that kind of situation. Paul, is the atmosphere? Do the players have an excuse? Is what I'm trying to say. Do you give them a pass on that one because the atmosphere is so strange, or do you look at the manager and say, "No, look, Sociedad controlled the game as you would expect them to do because we made a few changes and we know the problems that we've got when we make a few changes." Do we give the players a pass on that because it was such a strange environment for them to play in?
Well, we was just talking a minute ago about a game against Everton where United have lost, their their greatest ever figure,
Yeah,
in Sir Matt Busby, and in a way, yes, it affected the players, but everything about it and the way the boss was and the boss's talk prior to that game, it lifted everyone anyway because we felt, and you're talking about the boss's comment after the game, if we hadn't performed, he wouldn't have given us a pass on that
yeah,
one because he would have wanted the performance, to to give to Samat. So the boss would have demanded a performance. Um, I don't think you can give the players a pass on that. Um, I think you have to maybe look at Ten Hag tried something. I didn't. I think I said before. I didn't think it was a wise thing to do to go and make the
yeah,
changes. I didn't think it was right, but it's something he has to do because he knows the 11 he wants to pick. I think he knows his 11, and any Manchester United fan could go out and name his 11. Maybe one mistake, maybe at the most, but he made changes, and he found out a bit more really that the team his success has come from continuity with players around. The majority who he has brought in, they have to be playing. They're a focal point in what keep Manchester United going, which the other players bounce off of because of their desire to win games of football. And it wasn't there in that Sociedad game. It was lost because of certain styles changed. The pattern of play changed because you weren't getting what it was before. And Sociedad jumped off the back of that. I think is that they saw the changes and they just thought, oh, that would do. So maybe a little bit of a liberty that they've gone and done that to us. And I've done a, done a bit for one of their main sports paper a couple of days before, and I did turn around and said the thing that worries me is that if United go and make too many changes, Sociedad will take that as maybe a kick in the teeth and will bounce off the back of that. And I think in the manner in which they played, and again, it was another team coming to Old Trafford and controlling the ball. It just
mm,
says that United got it wrong because Sociedad, the league table position, didn't really judge how good they were because of the points at that time. I think Real Madrid were top of the league then with 12, and Sociedad had 7.
yeah,
They hadn't played so the gap wasn't that far, and Sociedad started okay as well. It's only in the latter, just prior to that when they dropped a few points.
yeah.
So it's going to be even harder when they go there as well. For
Oh yeah,
Sociedad to go to do a double over Manchester United doesn't matter long. Read it in 30, 40 years' time. That's great reading because people are not going to know the levels that United have dropped. So at this present moment, for them to have a double against Manchester United, it's equivalent to saying a double over Barca and Real Madrid.
yeah. Obviously, I mean, you can look in hindsight, and not even in hindsight. We were saying it before the game. The danger of making too many changes, and perhaps given the way that he did pick a strong side against Sheriff last time, that if he'd had known that the games would have been postponed, he would have probably picked a stronger side to play against Sociedad. I guess the counter response to that is that at some point, some of those players had to come in, and you look at McTominay and you see that, all right, he's had a really good response to the threat of his position being underplaced. So at some point, you kind of want to give Maguire and Shaw that same chance, because we know that they can play at a better level than what they are. But I mean, I guess that what we saw, particularly with Maguire and not wanting to get on his back, is the difference, the big difference really between when you start, not so much with Varane and Lindelof, because I know that Lindelof does sometimes like to come forward, even if he does play the safer ball a lot. But Martinez in particular, Paul, obviously he's forward facing with the ball. He always looks to play the ball in a positive way. And if you lose that kind of presence from the back line, and you've got two defenders who are quite happy to play it safe and then retreat sort of 20 yards with the ball, you're automatically changing the system, aren't you? You're really fundamentally changing the way that you play.
Well, it is. I mean, you look at Martinez or Martinez. Is it Martinez? Is Martinez or Martinez?
Yeah.
Martinez.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
going with anyway.
Yeah, but you look at the way, and very rarely, but you say a centre half is dynamic, and that's what he is. He's quite dynamic. When he gets on the ball, the midfield players have got the belief, but he's going to try and find one of them. The forward players will make a run in belief that he will see that, and he will, if he believes it's right, try and make that pass. And what he does do, to be perfectly honest, he overhits it. So at least he's turned them around, and if he hasn't hit them on the sixpence, then at least they get the ball into a positive area, and you might get a throw in or a corner out of it. Sometimes nothing worse than someone trying to be 2 inch perfect, hitting it short, is taken down off a chest or headed back by a defender, and bang, there's big gaps in midfield, and teams are hitting you breaking through you because of that long ball. Because long balls open up a field, they create space, positive, but they can be a negative if that ball isn't hit correctly. And overhitting, as much as sometimes it might go out, is always a better ball than underhitting, where you might get hit on the counter because there's so much space. And he doesn't give too many of those balls away, or United don't come out badly because of them, because he hits a lot of them early. And I think what you were saying is that if you haven't got him there, and you've got a Harry Maguire playing in that team, especially on that left side, nothing's ever going to move early. It's too much. It's too unorthodox. It looks clumsy trying to kick it forward, especially off his left side. It's never going to come off of his left side because he has got no belief or confidence on his left side for someone who has played so many games on his left side.
So Martinez played against Sheriff. We scored 2 goals in the first half. That was it. A very controlled away performance. They're playing away from the home stadium because of conflict. So they're playing in a different environment for themselves. That helps United because it's a neutral venue. They'd obviously had a lot of changes from the team that had played against Real Madrid and won against them last year as well. So it wasn't the same team. Still an unknown quantity. United did a professional job. Yes, they could have possibly turned the screw and scored more, but I mean, getting points on the board, doing it in a professional way. It's not like United haven't had. We all remember the road to Volgograd, Paul, where we went there and you don't know what to expect.
Not all of us. Some of us have managed to forget it until you said that. Thanks for that, Mike.
But yeah, the point is that these kind of games can be unpredictable. One thing I did like, and we're not seeing a lot of praise for this, apart from among United fans. So the goal that we scored against Arsenal, the first one under Anthony, if you watch that goal back, you can see there's a really good progress with the ball. They move the ball really fast, but they move it they try and make an attacking move. They don't find the solution. They go back to the defence and then they move forward again and they find the space. They create the space and score the goal. It's exactly kind of like the same kind of move that happened with Sancho. A lot of passes in there. They eventually find the space and Sancho uses good feet to score. Do you think that when we've got that first 11, or as close to the first 11, with all the main players in it, like Eriksen and like Martinez, Oh, Martinez, you may well be right with that. Yeah, definitely stand to be corrected with that. When you've got those main players in and they score a goal like that, do you think that maybe, you don't want to get carried away, but do you think that maybe people are under respecting what Ten Hag's done, the kind of influence that he's had on the football to score goals like that? Because I mean, everyone after the Arsenal game was saying, "Oh, United scored goals on the counter attack," and nobody's really talking about the quality of that Sancho goal. Part of the finish was good, but the quality of the play before that was excellent.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of respect for what he's done. So I mean, you don't have to be a United fan to have a look how that team is playing now, the way they set up. You look at the structure of it. You look at the way they're playing. They seem to know what they're doing. There's a pattern of play. I
Yeah,
mean, you see the back four. You look at the offsides they're getting as a back four. You look at a clean line. Everyone's in line. No one's dropped back at
yeah,
all. Because remember, how many goals did we concede off of predominantly Luke Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire on that side, where they just didn't have their distances. One was dropping back because there wasn't any trust, belief, or organisation in the back four, and that was happening too often. So there is. So what generally happens, what the way Ten Hag has done it, you don't have to be playing well to go out and get something out of a game. You could be having a bad time, but because you know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and again I use that word, continuity, it could get you out of trouble and it could make you dynamic as a team if things are going well. But if things are not going well, then all of a sudden you still know what each other and you'll just grind the game out. And that first 20 minutes, if he'd have made too many changes in that team, United could have been one or two down. If he'd
yeah,
have gone out and gone change his back four, thinking he's just got to give other people a game, it was a bonus. There isn't another game until a Premier League game until the Manchester derby, so that helped his decision to give those players a go, and it allowed that team to play together and maybe minus one or two changes to go into a really big game against City. So I think he's got it right there. The best he can do, as far as I'm concerned, is to keep that back line together as best you can. I mean, you're seeing Varane now, and everyone's saying about the game he's playing, no injuries. And I'll say this again: was Varane really getting injuries prior to Ten Hag coming? And we know that he got left out of games. We know a few, but there was times when he's played, you think, okay, and then all of a sudden he was injured. But played 90 minutes. I've never known in the last 5 6 years of football where so many players get injuries in training. And the
yeah,
thing about it though is that I'm sure there isn't many bulldogs around. I mean, how many times did I can remember the likes of Sir Alex having to tell Paul Ince, Roy Keane, and Mark Hughes to calm down because they're going to injure somebody. You
yeah,
know, but I just don't
yeah,
understand it. I don't know. Is it players who suddenly go, I don't know, I don't need it. But you know, I just wonder if that's happening for players to get injured so much. And Varane was one of them that played one week and then was left out. Oh, he's got a slight this, he's got a slight that, and
yeah,
I find it strange. But now because if you remember, Wayne, I was very critical of Varane, saying he's playing on the periphery. On the periphery, he didn't
yeah,
really join in. He never didn't see him doing what he'd done for Real Madrid. Definitely didn't see what he'd done for France. He was a million miles away from that player. Now I'm seeing that. Now I'm seeing somebody who, maybe except for a little bit of a dodgy period in that first half against Arsenal, is a player that I was expecting to see at Old Trafford.
yeah,
And we all know his great strength was to play against a man mountain, a leader in Ramos. Now maybe he's found a man smaller mountain in Martinez or Martinez. I think Martinez is the Aston Villa goalkeeper. I think that's him. Um, one of the two anyway. But I just think he might just need something to be. And I think the amazing thing you'll find is that when you're enjoying it, you want to keep going and going.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
why I made the silly decision to keep going and going my ankle, because I got FOMO. So because
yeah,
I just was scared of missing out on something, scared of not being that when if I just gave it that time and then come back, was I going to get back? And Varane seems that way, like he's enjoying himself, and nothing makes you enjoy yourself more than winning games of football and playing well as well. It's the best two parts of being a footballer.
Yeah, and for defenders keeping clean sheets, especially in this modern day where everything is so stat driven and numbers driven,
Yeah,
that
but
they
to
can.
say that, just one little bit as well. There's still people out there, skeptics, saying United could be better with a better goalkeeper. I don't know if there's many better goalkeepers out there, but you look at it, don't you look at David De Gea, you look at his decision making when the ball comes to him now, it's much better than
Yeah,
what he's doing. There's, everything he's doing, and people can say be a better team, we can go forwards. Well, United are scoring goals. Defensively, they look more assured. It doesn't matter. You're still going to concede goals, but it's a fact of how you score the goals and is it repetitive if it's poor
yeah,
decisions you're making all the time. And they're not making poor decisions all the time. And you're
yeah,
never going to be 100% right. It's impossible.
yeah,
If you want to score goals and still keep that element of Manchester United, which everyone's aware of, which is part and parcel of Manchester United, what the club's bred on, then you expect your defenders to be able to do a job in one against one situations because you're going to be quite open, and they are better. David De Gea looks more confident, and everyone keep wanting to blame him because he's the last line. The moment he gets passed by, that's it. Something bad's going to happen 9 times out of 10. But you see it now. You know how good a shot stopper he is. He's
yeah,
having less saves to make now than I think he's had in the last 4 or 5 seasons at least.
yeah. And you can see, you can call out some big ones. I think he made one against Sociedad, but even if he makes one a game, I mean, you look at those games like you said there. Yes, we concede against Liverpool, but what are you going to do? Liverpool are always likely to score. Yes, you concede against Arsenal, but Arsenal can always score a goal. We would have probably kept a clean sheet against Sociedad if it wasn't for the dodgy pen. We kept clean sheets away at Southampton and Leicester, and we kept a clean sheet against Sheriff as well. So yeah, I mean, it bears out for sure. One thing I wanted to ask Paul, and I made the observation at the top of the podcast, but I'm pretty sure I don't know where you're going to land on this. The postponements, obviously, against Palace and against Leeds. These games are going to be rearranged. They're talking about Leeds being rearranged for a midweek game. I don't know where they're going to fit that in. I haven't looked at the calendar, but they're saying on a Champions League night when we don't have a Europa League game, so I don't know when that is. I haven't looked, to be honest, but apparently that's one of the solutions. Postponements are only going to be a bad thing on if United. I mean, if there's going to be like sort of 2 extra games in this calendar before they break for the winter for Qatar and the World Cup, it's going to see a lot more utilisation of the squad for those league games, which you would have presumed would have seen the first team, and he might be tempted to make changes now. Do you know what I mean? For those league games, if they play midfield in midweek.
Yeah. The strange thing I find is why didn't they in that first week after we've gone a summer without football in that first week? Why wasn't there a midweek game? Why wasn't there any midweek games after that first Premier League fixture at the weekend? It was a
Yeah,
wasted week. The Championship sides, the Div 1, Div 2, that's religion. Those
yeah,
fans know. Those fans know whatever they play Saturday. They know Tuesday, Wednesday. They've got their second league
yeah,
game of the season, but not the Premier League because they're worried about managers moaning, "Oh, it's too quick. They need rest." Would have had a pre-season to get fit and enough time. I find it very strange. Plus, they knew they needed to fill it,
yeah,
get games in, and maybe now they might be saying, "Oh, we should have used that first week just in case there was anything come up. We'd have at least one spare week. We could
yeah,
find space to fit some games in if need be." Lo and behold, it happened. you know, we lose the Queen, and all of a sudden, football for no reason stops that weekend. It should never have stopped that weekend. Didn't make any sense at all because you always knew
yeah,
you was going to practically lose the second one. So I don't know why they do. Why they do this. The Premier League, I don't know what they're trying to do to not allow any games that weekend when they had the opportunity to still play them, caught them out, and I think they was trying to be clever, and they've taken a massive slap on the wrist from that. Everyone's kind of had a little laugh at the Premier League, thinking they're doing by not playing games when every other sport did what they did, and
yeah,
not playing the game in that first week, Wayne, a second game within that first midweek of the season was absolutely ridiculous. When players just got a little bit of a taste back again, and then bang, they could go and get another one to get their second wind of football again.
Yeah, it's going to be complicated for United moving forward. Before we move forward and talk about the next game that United are going to play, I just want to give a very big thank you to everyone who's shown a lot of support. On Saturday, I put the pre-order live for the biography of Duncan Edwards. I say on Saturday, I did it. My publishers did it. They released the cover and the title for it. I'll put it on screen in a second. But the support for it has just been incredible. And I know, obviously, it's mostly because Duncan's such a precious figure in United history, but still, I'm very, very overwhelmed by it. So the cover is here. It's the title's called Eternal, and it'll be available in 2023. And the publishers have done a great job. Everyone's been so supportive and so kind of that, and I just hope that the wait is worth it when the book comes out. So it's going to be a bit of a wait until United do play again. Still a couple of weeks, Paul. And the next game that they do play is the Manchester derby. I guess that's going to be the next time we talk will be after that, because there's no point previewing the game again next week. They look scary, don't they? And it's not so much. Do you know what I find funny about the thing with City? When Guardiola first went, everyone was talking about how he revolutionised the way that they play and everything, and nobody was talking about they've got so much money and blah blah blah. And even when he spent £150 million and bought a new goalkeeper to replace the one that he'd bought, and he bought 2 new fullbacks and a reserve fullback, he spent all this money on these players, and then spent more money on another fullback, and he's constantly done that. I think at some point people were talking about, the coaching's great, isn't the style of football great? And then people have become less enamored with the way that they play football. I don't think it's that enjoyable to watch. And then you add in, you've already got this like super rich, super expensively assembled team, and then you add Haaland into it, and you're seeing the expected results. At some point, there's going to be some kind of tipping point where it's the competitiveness of it looks ridiculous, and I think that's what you're seeing now. I think Haaland, all right, you still when we saw him come into the English league, you've still got that thing of, will he be good enough? But he obviously is. He's obviously he's going to be a generationally top striker. You've put him into a setup which is the strongest in the league, and in a weak league, in a poor league, and it's gonna, he's probably gonna set all kinds of new goal scoring records. And we might be on the back end of getting, he might score 2 or 3 against us, probably. At least going to get a couple. I don't know, Paul. I mean, we're not neutral. You've obviously played for United for years. You've won trophies at United. I look at it and I think obviously the game itself looks like it's going to be very, very tough because Haaland's so good and De Bruyne's on form, and they've obviously got an abundance of creative talent. I don't know. Is this the point where the Premier League goes, you know what? I think the spending power is a bit ridiculous now. The league's looking really weak the way that they were dismantling teams at the moment.
Yeah, it is, but I think as far as the Premier League are about it, they're quite happy because of the monetary side of it. Them is great. Everyone is told who's, within their inner cauldron or anybody outside who's doing their bit for them wants to call it the greatest league, and I have to laugh. Really, it's not the greatest league because it's no different to how the Liga used to be. Well, used to be up until the last 2 or 3 seasons because of the pandemic. The Italian league has suddenly opened up to, 4 or 5 teams can win that. It's very, very competitive now, the Italian league, which is great in a way. There's no more Juve consistently all the time. So this league at the moment, it needs something to make it worthwhile, because it's, as much as they say supporters, it's virtually becoming, everyone's going to, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not as competitive as a championship. It's not a case of can they do that or can't they do that? Wasn't there a time, and I think I've said it numerous occasions, where Manchester United could go to Selhurst Park, to Plough Lane, and maybe get beaten.
Yeah.
And everyone would just talk about the fact of the underdog, talk about them, what they'd done to win it, and what a great time for them. And that's how football was. You had to be on your guard. You see it now, and virtually it's not that way. I think there's a little bit more fight this season than what there has been in previous season. I think that stall was set out by Fulham when they should have beaten Liverpool at Craven Cottage, and Fulham have gone on to great things since then. So there's definitely a little bit that could be as well because of a World Cup coming up as well. So it's amazing. It'll be interesting what happens over these next few weeks because once we come out of September, that's all everyone's going to talk about. We'll be talking about players feeling tired. He's got to be rested. All those adages will be all coming out now of people looking for excuses why football this isn't going that way and why that isn't going that way. And it's about the team that sets up the right way before they go. And I think Pep's got something in his head already where Man City are going to be in a good position, a comfortable position, that when they come back again on December the 18th to play their their first Premier League game or around that time, they're just going to go bang again and carry on from where they left off. Other sides will struggle, And I was chatting to someone the other day, and I said, in every other sport, major sport in this country, when it comes around to a World Cup, those sports still carry on. They don't stop.
Yeah.
But yet, we've got it through the middle of the season for the first time, and it's stopped, except for, I think, the first and second division carry on.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah, they still carry on, and and to be honest, it might be quite good for them because they just, and obviously the grassroots football, they'll get more people through the turnstile because everyone's going to be on the buzz. It's going to be full of international football, which a lot of people don't enjoy. So they're going to be looking for their little bit of football. So, good on them if the clubs down there go and get extra revenue by people coming through their gates because of the Premier League not carrying on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. What do you make of what I was going on about when I was blathering on about Guardiola and the brand of football? Because obviously, people don't seem to talk about that anymore. They don't talk about City playing beautiful football. They just look at them and just, you know what I mean? They now cross the ball. Now they've got a target man in on, and the old, I'm going to play this way and no other way has sort of gone out of the window, hasn't it? It's just like, all right, we've got all, and we'll just play to that. And it just looks like, honestly, sometimes when you watch them play, it looks like a professional team playing against a youth team, like every single game that they play.
It'd be interesting to go and watch maybe 2 or 3 of Pep's first season at City, and then watch it now, watch now, and even to watch his second season as well. Because the one thing Pep would never have when he first started was the fact of crossing the ball and the fact of having centre halves. He wanted midfield players as centre halves so they could play out in the back. He suddenly realised in the Premier League that works, for a short bit when you're struggling with injuries, when you bring people in. Mascherano at Liverpool comes to mind. How well he done in that role. But after a while, you can't because teams will just suddenly change their dynamic to go against your weaknesses, and that's what teams done. But you look at him now, and he's filled berths all over the place. Now he's getting injuries to centre halves again, but he's able now because he's got quite a few centre halves within his squad to be able to fill that where he couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
But you're seeing Haaland, like you say, now they're crossing the ball. They're still not just slinging it in. Everything is cultured, everything is planned, and they're still looking to hit the man rather than areas. But the one thing is, they know that man will cover all the areas to do that. And that's why when I chat to people and everyone talks about Haaland and they talk about, but if Kane had been there, last season, they could have won the Champions League. I turn around and say to people, Kane was never going there. Pep was never going to buy Kane. Kane was not what he wanted. Kane wants to be De Bruyne. That's the way Kane plays. Kane is not going to run across the first man at near post to put a header in. Kane is not going to attack the far post, looking to go with his head, putting his body on the line to get there to score a goal. He wanted a different striker. He wanted someone who's going to score in a 6-yard box. He wanted an Aguero. And
Yeah.
he's got that. And he wanted someone, if a team did hold a high line, someone who could run in behind. And Haaland can run behind. The thing about it as well, if anyone's on his shoulder, the only way you're going to stop him is foul him. Because you're
Yeah.
not just going to. And the thing about it, he is never going to go down unless he is generally fouled. We saw
Yeah.
that at the weekends. He will just keep going and going and going. So be interesting when the Derby game comes up, because I look at where he plays and he likes to play. He'll be playing up against Varane.
Yeah.
That's most of it. He goes from there, and then he looks to go in between the two centre halves. That's his run.
Yeah.
Now, Martinez is going. Those two are going to have to play very, very close together because Varane is going to need Martinez. He's
Yeah.
going to need someone around him, and I don't know how he's going to deal with this. The last thing you want is Scott McTominay going anywhere near him because Scott McTominay will get sent off because Scott McTominay hasn't got any defensive discipline. Everything
Yeah.
about him is just kick them, and if you don't kick them, pull them down. So you need someone with a little bit more guile to stop the ball getting there. Someone who will try to nick it off the toe. Someone who will work around the front of him and be very how they play. Maybe Ericsson can maybe do that just to slow down his run, an opportunity to get that run. So Ten Hag has got a lot of work to do to think about how he's going to stop the threat. He's not going to stop it 100%. That's impossible. He will have his moment, but it's to lessen the load on the
Yeah.
back foot, on the two centre halves.
Yeah, it's going to be, like you said, I think, especially in this first season under Tanago, the first few months at least, we were all a bit worried the first couple of games when he was playing a lot of the same players that, you know, that, that played last season, and we're wondering when he was going to make the changes. And he's made those changes, and, by and large, they're doing well at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how, because he's obviously going to want to play something of his own philosophy against City. So, like some ball retention, but that's difficult against City because they're so stifling on the ball. It is going to be interesting to see what he does with this collection of players against City. And like you said, against Haaland, Martinez did very well against him in the head-to-heads that they've played before, by all accounts. I don't. I'm not sure that I saw those games, but everyone tells me that he did well against him. So, but like you said, he's probably going to operate on the side that Varane's playing at, and
Yeah,
we'll
maybe Martinez, Wayne, is a bit like myself when I played the middle. He got most of his joy playing up against the bigger fella rather than anybody around his own stamp with a little bit of
yeah,
change of pace. I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed going against the bigger because it was a challenge. And we've
yeah.
already seen already that man loves a challenge.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have one against City for sure. That will be when we're back to talk about the result of that game and the performance there. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please give us a rating and review on the podcast provider that you're listening on, and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube as well. That's it for this week, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will be back in a couple of weeks to talk about United's trip to Manchester City, however that goes down.